check this out. This is an article from ancientorigins.net, and evidence of climate disaster that could have spawned the Ragnarok myth. And I was like, yeah, this is a sweet end of times thing. So, this starts kind of cute and whatnot, but it says basically this. So, the Journal of Archaeological Science Reports claims that the myth of Ragnarok may have been inspired by a real climate catastrophe that led to a population decline in Denmark around 1500 years ago. And here's the quote: "Archaeobotanical and stable isotope analysis on plant remains from 39 sites spanning the Bronze, Iron, and Viking ages in Denmark has been undertaken in order to investigate the development and resilience of agricultural practices, particularly through the 1250-year-long Iron Age from 500 BC to 750 AD. Wrote the authors of the study. But during the mid-6th century AD, two massive volcanic eruptions occurred on the American continent, releasing vast amounts of ash and sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. This triggered a significant cooling of the northern hemisphere's climate, and historical records from China describe this period as one where the sun appeared pale and cold, crops failed to ripen, and the stars were obscured for over a year due to volcanic particles lingering in the atmosphere." True climate change. You got to love it when that happens, right? But the deal is this. I want to point out, so we'll start with this and we'll get to this other larger contextual story as part of the legend tonight, because there's a lot of things to talk about. But I want to reiterate that this would be a real end of time level disaster. An election happens every 2 years in America, and every 4 years beyond that, right? Every 2 years, a big one, 4 years, 2 years, 4 years. And this has been going on our entire lives. 1968, we had a president assassinated. I mean, there's a lot of really terrible things that have happened in the past, and the Republic found a way to persist. And we're here, and we've enjoyed the fruits of it, and because of good people that are out there that will put their foot down when bad things begin to happen. So don't forget, it is up to us. And I just want to make sure that there's no gloom and doom out there, and no matter whether you liked it or you didn't like it or you didn't pay attention at all, don't worry. We've all been here before. 1963, I'm sorry, says Fred. Sorry about that. I got the year wrong. Okay, so anyway, back to this. Now, that's the whole point. Is that it is not the end. It is not the end of times. And we'll talk about true end of times, including Ragnarok, because I thought this was a wild one to start with, because it was really the impetus of the show tonight, the idea behind, well, let's look at a true disaster and talk about actual disasters and some myths and legend that go along with it, because I got some other wild ideas that fit. But if you want to be a part of the show tonight, we are taking your calls, of course, at 702-957-1037. You can click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Come say hi. Come join the Discord. We'll put you on the show. It's as simple as that. But for the time being, let's take a quick break and get a word from our sponsor. In this case, that would be Human Inspiration. Don't go anywhere. More Troubled Minds coming up in exactly 1 minute. And there's a lot of things happening. And let's talk about some wild things and consider longer cycles together. And that these quick hit 2 year and 4 year cycles go faster than you think. So whether you like it or not, it's going to be quick and gone. And there'll be a new, let's say, tension on the horizon, as it always is. The other part to this, now Ragnarok is one thing. We've talked about that aspect and sort of the gloom and doom and the end times and things like this. We've talked about it in the past. But in this particular case, this is a different story. And this is about the lost land of Lyonesse, is how you say that. And I'll just tell it straight from the thing, because if I try and ramble through this, it's a disaster, and I'd rather just get it right. Check it out. Long ago, as legends tell, the land of Lyonesse stretched from Cornwall's southern tip, a bright and fertile expanse kissed by the sea. Its people lived in prosperity, an echo of lost Atlantis, and the land's heir, Sir Tristan, was often away at King Arthur's court, a hero's duty calling him to the realm of Camelot. But while Tristan was away, his people committed an act so unspeakable, so drenched in collective sin, that it demanded divine retribution. And retribution came swiftly. In a single night, Lyonesse sank beneath the waves, swallowed whole as the ocean rose up in a wrathful tide. And that's straight from the write-up as usual. You can find all this information that I'm reading from, the information I'm drawing this stuff from, the links and whatnot. They will be down below in the podcast and also on the all the different platforms we're streaming on, in case you guys want to follow along or read ahead or revisit it another time or whatever. So it's all there, so you can check it out. And a lot of this stuff is really pretty good. So here we go. So this was no slow erosion, this actual swallowed in the sea, right? This is no slow erosion, no gentle claim by the sea. It was as if the very fabric of the world had torn, taking Lyonesse into the depths. Only a single survivor made it to land, his tale recounting a night of chaos and terror, a watery apocalypse, leaving no trace of the once great land. To this day, the people of Cornwall say that on quiet nights, you can hear the church bells of Lyonesse ringing beneath the waves, a haunting echo of a world lost, punished for crimes no one remembers, if they ever truly knew. Now, this is a story that goes back a long time. You think of, the biblical one. What is that? The one everybody knows, at least the one I know, Sodom and Gomorrah, right? These cities riddled in sin, sort of cleansed off the earth, and the divine retribution of fire and brimstone, and because the people were doing terrible things, right? And so this is not a new story. This is a tale as old as time, but recognize that it is about these larger cycles as I'm describing. There's no modern apocalypse. I mean, we can go back to maybe Santorini. We can go back to Pompeii and that whole bit, right? I mean, that's not really recent at all. And so that wasn't even, I guess you could call it apocalyptic if you lived in those places, but for a worldwide catastrophe, not so much, right? Or an entire land wiped away, not so much. And so anyway, just a reminder that the world is a scary place, but it's not a scary place because of, as I've been saying. So anyway, so as I was just describing, so Lyonesse isn't alone in its tragic descent. As I was saying there, across cultures, we find myths of cataclysmic punishment and sunken lands, visions of the end, entire realms destroyed by forces that seem both natural and cosmic. And as we started, and as I described, take Ragnarok, the Norse tale of the world's end, where gods clash in an apocalyptic battle that shatters the very heavens. Fire rains down, oceans rise, and Yggdrasil, the world tree, trembles as the final moments play out in a blaze of fury. You feel like that's happening right now, guys? I don't, but I do feel that people are worried and scared, and they need us, okay? They need us to assure them that things will be okay, regardless of how we feel in a moment, and moments do pass, okay? So like I said, I want to frame this properly so that we recognize what's happening around us, whether you see it or not. Like I said, I'm out there talking to people, and there's some folks that are rattled. Anyway, so unlike the loss of Lyonesse, Ragnarok unfolds with a chaotic grandeur. Yet both share the same sense of a world punished, a civilization paying for sins unspoken. And so in this case, I mean, right, you can say that every civilization has its layer of sin. It's, terrible people. It's, genocides even. And it is an unfortunate thing of history where this stuff all does come to a brutal realization when you start reading history. And so if you look at this and consider, well, I'll get to the question in a second, but basically the point is this, is that these longer cycles indicate that there are this sort of memory, this remnant idea of ancient times where these places once were. And even though we don't have evidence of these things, these have been passed down through the oral tradition and eventually written down in these ancient tomes, these ancient books, even compiled books, and then turned into the Bible and other things, right? Amazing stuff. It's fantastic that we have, stories from thousands of years ago that were actually brought to us by elders telling stories by the campfire, okay? Which is incredible to me that a lot of this information has survived to this point, and even it survived intact. If we're talking about the Bible, go back to the Dead Sea Scrolls, and you'll see that there's a lot of actual verbatim stuff from thousands of years ago that is still in versions of the James King and other Bibles of the world. So it's an incredible thing, and we should be again cognizant that these longer cycles are noteworthy. Okay, at least noteworthy. And, a 4-year thing should just be a 4-year thing. So anyway, and now this Lost Land of Lyonesse and the way all this stuff comes together is the question is this. So it is a resonant energy in our mind, and I'm calling this mystic resonance, okay? And we have sort of this idea or this thing built into us that kind of is the call to adventure as part of that Joseph Campbell, the hero cycle a little bit. The Hobbit, you guys remember that when he was kind of pushed out of the door by 12 dwarves and Gandalf. And what was he? The 13 dwarves. He was a lucky 14, I think, was it? But so, and that whole bit. And so it is drawn to the idea of ancient, let's say, in this case, or the case of the Hobbit, the ancient, the Lonely Mountain with the treasure and smog and the rest, right? But clearly that type of stuff is, right, long gone. Or is it? And that becomes the question. And the idea tonight, so the Lost Land of Lyonesse was sunk. in a divine retribution overnight for sins so unspeakable we don't even know what they are at this point. Okay, but sailors, fishermen off the coast can still hear on the waves themselves the church bells of the doomed city ringing under particular conditions. And so the question I have, and what brought to mind this idea tonight when I was reading these quick tales here, is that is it possible that these places that have been zapped from history through some sort of cataclysmic divine retribution are accessible through some sort of ancient memory or ancient wanderlust built into us to seek and find them? And again, back to that, the bells ringing in the ocean, the fishermen hearing this. Is it possible that this place still exists somewhere, slightly out of phase, and it was zapped into not oblivion, not pure destruction, but zapped into the next realm, into another reality even? And sometimes, as we talk about tonight, when the veil thins, and the veil has thinned, is it possible that we're able to detect the actual resonance, the mystic resonance of these long forgotten places because they're still there? And that's what's on my mind tonight. And we've heard tales of this. Again, I can't remember. I think somebody called in quite a while ago. And forgive my poor memory. We've been doing this show for years and had lots of calls, but lots of fantastic calls. But somebody was telling the tale of being somewhere in Mexico, okay? And they climbed up on the top of a pyramid, and they turned, and they were sort of out of phase. And they felt as if time had changed. Like the places around them, the jungle was more full. It didn't seem like it was peeled away like it had been as part of the tourist thing. They started hearing the sounds of like a native village sort of operating around them. And it was one of those moments where they kind of stepped into the time slip or into the area or aspect of what this place used to be. And so my question for you guys tonight is that exact thing. Is it possible that this idea, I'm making up a new term, mystic resonance, is out there everywhere? And we talked about the stone tape theory recently, not stoned ape, stone tape, where the actual resonant energy of people and civilizations reside in these stone, anything, granite or whatever, right? Crystals, we talked about crystals. We did some crystal stuff on that show. But is it possible that this resonant energy is stuck and out of phase, kind of like the Philip K. Dick idea of multiple timelines? And it wasn't blown up, boom, it was just moved over, slightly out of phase in time. And now we're able to detect it, hear it under certain circumstances, and even maybe time slip into it. Does that seem too wild for you? I don't really know if it's too wild for me, but I did like the idea, so let's run with it. And of course, take this anywhere you like a little bit tonight, because I know it was a little brutal over the thing. Like I said, people are scared, and so let's be cognizant of that, and let's help our neighbors. As George Orwell said, it is the thing that matters most is if we remain human in the face of all the horrors we're given, not just through propaganda, but of course through, all the rest of the terror that we expect to come as part of the unknown. And so, yeah, that's where my mind's at tonight. Like I said, I know a lot happened over the last 48 hours, and I've been a little bit lazy myself, just kind of trying to process all of it and, kind of catch up on things and see what's happening, because as usual, right, with propaganda, you got to keep your ear to the ground, because you never know what kind of stuff they're telling you that might have a sliver of truth. And so you got to be aware, in my opinion, just to make sure that they don't pull a fast one over on us, because it is up to us to put our foot down and say, hell no, this will not abide. So anyway, that's what's going on. So the idea of mystic resonance is exactly that. There's more about this on the write-up. We'll get to some of these other ideas that kind of fit with it. But Ragnarok plays, of course, this idea of the lost land of Lyonesse. How about Sodom and Gomorrah? What other ones am I missing? I'm sure there's a whole bunch of these. I could probably AI up a list here real fast. But you get my point. There's a lot going on with this. There's not just this story, but let's say the mystic resonance of civilizations that are long past. Look at a place like Mount Shasta. They say this about let's say a place known as Lemuria, they say, right? Or was it what is it? What's the place on Shasta? I can't remember. Anyway, but there's this place out there, supposedly Mount Shasta, Northern California, where they say it's gone. It's not within our time frame, and it's beyond even, let's say, human memory, except somehow when people are in the presence of it, they remember it. Now I'll pull it up and we'll talk about it specifically because I forgot the name. It was just sort of riffing on the way through. But what do you guys know about this idea of mystic resonance? And are we drawn to these places intentionally or otherwise? And is there something to learn from this? And that's, yeah, there we go. That puts us where we need to be. I see you guys in the chat. What's up? Ted in England says, I believe memory is inherited the same as natural instinct. There you go. And I think there's something to be said for that as part of we talked about the generational memory epigenetics. I think we just did a show recently on that. But there you go. That's what's happening tonight. And like I said, we can meander a little bit tonight. We can, like I said, pressure release valve a little bit. Let's talk about these tales of ancient times. And if we're actually drawn to these places, these Philip K. Dick sort of time slips, and if these places actually are still there or not, or maybe they never existed at all. It's always possible. It's something else. And just a story. You tell me. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. We got Matthew in Colorado coming up and your calls as well. Tonight we're talking mystic resonance, the lost land of Lyonesse, and a little bit of pressure relief after the last 48 hours. Hope you guys are doing well tonight. The veil has thinned. How you feeling? Everything good? Tonight we're talking, could it be that lost lands like Lyonesse still echo through time, their mysteries lingering as faint energies or forgotten memories in the human psyche? Now, this of course fits into a lot of spaces. Like I said, cataclysms in history, and even prehistory, and even folklore and mythology really kind of sit in the same space. And it is based on that sin. We've done something terrible, there's a divine retribution, and so of course the land or the space has been removed in fire and brimstone or something similar, okay? Well, these places, like Lemuria was the place that I couldn't remember. Thank you, Matt and Matzal in the chat there. Lemuria is the place that I couldn't remember with Mount Shasta. But supposedly it's a civilization that's pre-time, basically, pre-humanity, where there's some other entities that were there and still reside, but they've shifted over into another parallel space in the same space, but a parallel time slice or something, but where we can sometimes access it and sometimes we can't. And that's what I was trying to think of when I was talking about that before we went to the break. But that's it. It's Lemuria is the rumor around Mount Shasta that there's an access portal or something somewhere around that mountain, and people sense it and feel it, and weird happenings going on around there. Anyway, so what do you guys know about this? Talking this mystic resonance stuff, and is this possible that they're actual, the mysteries of these ancient cities, or let's say doomed spaces, are still there, whether we recognize what they are, the names even in prehistory, and what about these time slips and everything else? Does it seem too much for you? It's probably too much for me, but let's entertain the thought as well, which is a good time, by the way. Hang tight, Matthew, 1 second. For all the disclaimers, there's no truth to be found here, just ideas. This is just people talking about wild things, sort of untethered from reality for a moment, sort of like Marvel's What If. So if you're here and you're super mad because you're like, none of this is true, well, relax. It's okay. We're just talking. We're just thinking. We're just trying to see what maybe we've missed in the historical record and maybe missed in the human zeitgeist itself. So there you go.